Hello, everybody. It's Wisdom Wednesdays. I am Ariana Newcomer, Dove Oracle Priestess, biofield tuning practitioner, and spiritual mentor. Today, I'm talking about and I'm offering a perspective shift. In dealing with this new coronavirus, we talk about fighting the virus. And I'm going to offer that it's going to be more useful for us to not fight the virus. It's not a war. We fight the virus, we fight cancer, we fight other political views, we fight other people, we fight nature, we fight other countries. It's all about the other. And this is exactly the opposite of what we need to do to heal. When we're fighting, we're activating the sympathetic nervous system, our fight or flight nervous system. It puts cortisol into the system, adrenaline. And those chemicals actually prevent us from healing. What we need to do is to activate our parasympathetic system, our rest and digest or calming and centering nervous system, because that's when we heal. And I've talked about the vagus nerve in Wisdom Wednesdays in the past. The vagus nerve is a huge part of our parasympathetic system. So learning to balance and tone our vagus nerve is really beneficial. I'd be happy to work with any of you on that. I have a bunch of techniques that we can use. So pop me a message or book a time to talk with me if you would like to learn more about how to get the vagus nerve in balance and good tone so that you can come into that more calm and centered place for healing. But this perspective shift is also what we need to heal the climate. It's also what we need to create the new world. So many of us have been working and dreaming and visioning about the new world, about a new way of being human together, of coming into greater connection. And there's a great post that Deepak Chopra wrote with Zach Bush, MD, recently on his LinkedIn profile. I'll put a link to that article below so that you can read it. But it's really a lot about this issue of shifting our perspective as humans. And he starts out by saying it's very rare that human beings have a chance to rethink our place in nature. The modern world is the fruit of a worldview that has placed Homo sapiens reigning supreme over all other life forms. And this worldview seems only right and proper to the vast majority of people. I talked about this recently in a Wisdom Wednesdays video called Our Toxic Culture, where I explained Riane Eisler's work on the dominator culture and the partnership paradigm. And this is the dominator culture, this seeing of ourselves as the supreme beings on the planet, as the most important beings on the planet. The dominator culture requires these rankings of superior and inferior. So we're superior and everything else on earth is inferior. But we don't then behave in the way that we need to, because we actually are just a part of the web of life on earth. We won't survive without clean water and clean air. We won't survive without good food. Yet we have been spewing toxins into our environment. We've been destroying nature at an incredibly rapid pace without seeming to come to any kind of true realization, as many of us as there are out there who know that this is going on, that actually we have to change the way that we live on Earth. So Chopra and Bush's article continues, can a new and better world emerge? Not unless our worldview changes, because in many ways, the virus isn't a mindless, primitive form. Excuse me. The virus isn't a mindless, primitive life form ravaging us, the most superior life form on the planet, nor did nature strike back to punish us. Something deeper is going on. To see what it is, we need to consider a worldview based not on humans as supreme, but on life as supreme. Our superiority complex has quite literally put us in opposition to life on Earth. And this culture, the dominator culture, our superiority complex, the rankings of superior and inferior, also has hugely contributed to racism and inequality. Anytime we are othering someone else, we're putting them in a ranking. I'm superior to them. And in a dominator culture, I need to feel superior in order to be okay. What if we didn't? What if we could be in partnership with each other? Their article continues, in January, the world caught news of a virus, a new variant of a coronavirus, a family of viruses that has been with us for well over 1,000 years. At no point did any science suggest, nor any public official report, that this virus would poison our ecosystems and threaten the survival of humans and much other life on the planet in the coming years. Instead, we were told that the virus would contribute to the passing of the millions of people that die from a myriad of respiratory illnesses every year. The death toll from the virus, even at its most hyperbolic predictions, would be a fraction of the deaths from chronic diseases that result each year from our polluted and depleted soil, water, air, and food systems. Nonetheless, this new threat was suddenly enough. We paused. Charles Eisenstein has written about this as well. Sorry, allergies are getting me today. We do very little about the climate, about starvation of children, about human trafficking, but the virus, we can fight it. We gear up the war machine because that's what we know how to do in the dominator culture. We know how to fight things. But back to the Chopra Bush article, we have an opportunity to finally learn from our mistakes. The lesson is being taught by the humblest of messengers, a microscopic speck of genetic material. The virus is not our enemy. If we let it, it will be our greatest teacher. So again, I'm going to say it's not a war. What if it isn't a war? Back to the article, if you adopt the perspective of life itself, Earth is dominated by the genes of bacteria, fungi, and protozoa, which hugely outnumber any life forms. This vast microbial genome is the foundation of life on the planet, and its aim, as with all life forms, is to adapt, survive, and foster diversity. And as the collective bacterial stress levels increase, DNA misspellings, i.e. mistakes in reproduction, create billions of trial and error genetic variations. When a survival advantage is discovered, that beneficial gene can be transferred in various ways across many species, but for maximum impact over great distances, viral transfer is the vehicle of choice. In other words, viruses are a medium in order to transfer genetic changes that can be beneficial. And this has happened over thousands and thousands of years. So the goal isn't to harm us, but to maintain a stable, biodiverse ecosystem on Earth. So we have to have this change in worldview. So a viable world, a viable biodynamic, healthy microbiome within us and without us on Earth benefits all of us, benefits humans far more than our self-centered, short-sighted focus on money, power, war, nationalism, endless consumerism chained to massive pollution and the chemical degradation of our air, food, and water. So part of the point of this article is to help us understand viruses' functions and their place in this web of life that we are actually a part of, not separate from, not totally superior to, because we can wipe ourselves out by essentially fouling our own nest, as we have been doing. And viruses can disperse their genetic information throughout the planet via air and water currents. They don't just get transferred by our vapor droplets and our hands and the things that we touch. They fly around in the air, they come around in the water. And the messages they carry are picked up by more species than just us. Every species can take up a viral load on the basis of its own stress levels. And we can integrate or reject the new genetic data. And sometimes that viral stress signal calls up an immune response. We get sick. But long term, life adapts, and we humans are made more resilient by encountering these viruses. Viral communication has worked this way for billions of years. And they mentioned in this article that the latest findings have revealed that our own genome was built by genetic data from bacteria, fungi, and other multicellular species. And in concert, all together, we actually have more bacterial and viral, I know, DNA inside us than we have human DNA. We are a multiverse inside, as well as we are part of this web of life. So viruses and bacteria have helped to create this profoundly complex and marvelous human biology. But so let's look at this. They say in the article, we have changed the playing field for the critical balance of viral communication. And COVID-19, when seen on a global scale, represents the continued effort of the 4 billion-year-old microbiome seeking to put things right. In our old worldview, in the human worldview of we're superior, we're the most important beings on the planet, that's irrelevant. But that's been an either or choice. Either things are good for human prosperity or bad for it. As we change our worldview, as we change our perspective, we can see that what is good for the microbiome, for the earth as a whole, is actually good for us. And we can support life, or we can diminish its chance for survival, as we have been doing for the last several generations of humans in the fossil fuel age. A new world, if it emerges in the coming decade, they say in the article, will make choices that benefit the microbiome and us at the same time. So achieving this abolition, as they say, of global pesticides, herbicides, indiscriminate antibiotics, and carbon emissions is essential. And only our irrational resistance to reality, bound up with an outmoded self-destructive worldview, keeps us on the downward path. In the name of healing and the salvation of life on earth, no one can alter the course of destruction except us. Charles Eisenstein has written about these issues also, and I've mentioned him in a couple of Wisdom Wednesdays, and I recommend you look him up. He's written some beautiful essays on this, the coronation and the conspiracy myth. So it's not a war. The virus is a naturally occurring, viruses have been naturally occurring on Earth for billions of years. They may well be the building blocks of most of life on Earth, and they are part of the way that life evolves and deals with new stresses and creates the changes that are necessary. So we have to shift our perspective from we're fighting everything. And again, I'm going to come back to that activates the sympathetic fight or flight nervous system, pumps chemicals and hormones into our bodies that will prevent us from healing. And that kind of fighting ethos is also going to prevent us from doing what we need to do to actually have a climate we can continue to live on. So coming into our parasympathetic nervous system, calming ourselves down, Then we can do the work to elevate consciousness, to be more loving, to recognize our interconnectedness, our place in the web of life, and to do our work of radiating love and coherence out into the collective. And this is something that we do in the Wise Women Immersion. And we also do this in biofield tuning. So biofield tuning is an excellent way to shift yourself out of the sympathetic nervous system, come into that calm and centered place, and come into feeling more coherent and being able to access our loving selves and being able to access healing and create healing for ourselves, for others, and for the planet. And we were also talking in the Wise Women Immersion class yesterday about that 100th monkey phenomenon, that sometimes we who have been dreaming of and working toward and doing things toward creating the new human culture that we need can feel really, really discouraged. And these times are hard. Lots of discouraging things going on. However, I want to remind you, as we reminded each other in class yesterday, that there are millions of us on the planet, millions of humans on the planet who are doing this work. And if you're familiar with the story of the 100th monkey, we're coming to that place where there are going to be enough of us who have elevated our consciousness, who've created that greater inner coherence, who've come into healing, who are being more loving, who recognize that we are part of the web, that all of us are in this together, and that fighting is not going to solve things. And it doesn't mean, I don't mean to say that we don't need to work really hard to change things like systemic racism, especially here in the United States, but it exists in other countries around the world. Again, it's that dominator culture. Somebody has to be superior, somebody has to be inferior. The anger is absolutely justified. Anger is a useful emotion that can move us to actually creating the change that we need. So I'm not saying don't be angry. I'm not saying don't work hard to create changes, but see if we can make this shift in perspective that it isn't about fighting, because that can actually stop us in many ways, especially virus, and potentially incorporate its beneficial aspects without having to fight it, without having that overwhelming immune response. So I'd be happy to talk with you about biofield tuning for you, for your vagus nerve, for your parasympathetic calming system, and to create more of that inner coherence, bring you back into that place where you can radiate love and compassion and coherence out into the collective and be part of that 100th monkey phenomenon. Because as I started to say, more and more of us are doing this. And as we do this, the tipping point is coming. Tipping point where human consciousness is going to tip over into the new perspective, and we can create the new world that we so desire. So we'd love to talk with you if this calls to you, and book a time to talk with me. The link will be in the comments below. And I look forward to talking with you, and I look forward to you continuing your inner journey to create that inner coherence, come more into love and alignment and the consciousness of oneness, that we are all one. We are part of this web of life on earth. See you next.